Hello, I'm Grace Helbig here with 24 seconds of climate reality. Did you know that energy efficiency is improving globally and saving people money in the process? Since energy efficiency standards were developed in the US, consumers have effectively saved about $200 billion on their energy bills. And that's 24 seconds that can change the world.
What can change in a day? A solar array can power a community. A business can embrace clean technology. A nation can vote to reduce carbon pollution. Around the world, every day, people are taking action to fight climate change, enacting real solutions, and already seeing the benefits. Join us as we travel on a journey of progress around the world, exploring the path toward a better, cleaner future for all of us, and how you can help create it. What can change in a day? Our future. This is 24 Hours of Reality. 24 Reasons for Hope.
This is hour 7 of 24 Hours of Reality, and just so you all are emotionally prepared, it's my final hour, as your host, that is. Frankly, I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else today. This is a cause of global importance, and it's been a privilege being a part of this remarkable event that's been putting the spotlight on the solutions that exist and are having a positive impact here and now. This hour will explore how energy efficiency is improving and saving people money, which is basically 2 attractive shades of green. And I'll be monitoring a town hall with a tireless man about to speak to us, as he'll be doing each and every hour. He is, of course, our former vice president, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and the founder of the Climate Reality Project, Mr. Al Gore.
Welcome to Hour 7. It's very exciting for me to be back and to give another reason for hope. Energy efficiency, known as the hidden fuel. It allows us to do more with less. While we've all heard about efficient light bulbs, and by the way, we'll talk about that too because there's some even better ones that are now on the market, but many of us have wanted to go beyond that. And the opportunities for energy efficiency are way broader than just changing light bulbs. Of course, it's worth remembering that changing light bulbs and windows and all of those options, while that's important, we really have to change the laws and the global policies. And that's what the UN meeting on Tuesday, this special session, is all about. And that's what Paris next year is going to be about. But energy efficiency is, in the eyes of many experts, the single largest source of potential savings and potential reductions in global warming pollution. It's a key part of our sustainable future, from energy efficient appliances and lighting systems to industrial systems and smart meters. Energy efficiency covers a broad range of topics, but when you put it all together, energy efficiency is about powering the economy with less energy than ever before, and it's also about saving people and businesses a lot of money even as the global warming pollution is sharply reduced. So let's take a look at this reason for hope. Energy efficiency is improving globally and saving people money even as it reduces global warming pollution. Now, in the last hour, we talked about the decoupling, again that word, of economic growth with energy consumption. This is a really important set of figures here, illustrated by this graph, showing that per dollar of economic output, energy consumption has already come down dramatically and is projected to continue going down dramatically. One of the reasons this has happened is that For 150 years, we have had these artificially cheap fossil fuels, artificially because the full cost of the fuel has not been included in the price of these fuels. For example, the 98 million tons of global warming pollution that they end up dumping into the atmosphere every single day, that's really the main cause of the climate crisis. But if you just look at the nominal price, since oil was discovered a little over 150 years ago in Pennsylvania, by the way, and was added to coal as the biggest source of energy in the world, we kind of got used to these artificially low prices, and the entire industrial and business and commercial and residential infrastructure built up over the last century and a half has been extremely inefficient, because as long as we believed falsely that the price of energy was so low, every time architects and builders and carpenters faced a choice between paying a little bit more to have more insulation, better building techniques, or spend a little bit more to burn more energy, as long as the energy was thought to be so cheap, they chose that option. And so we have a lot of extremely inefficient buildings and technologies and machines and industrial systems. But starting with the OPEC embargo and the sharp increase in the price of oil, the energy efficiency has been improving. And if you look at per capita electricity consumption in the state of California compared to the rest of the United States, what a dramatic difference. Now, California's GDP growth was comparable to the US GDP growth during this period, but what California did differently is they had good leaders, and they had a state legislature that actually got it. And before the rest of the country was talking about energy efficiency standards, California put them in place as a matter of state law. And so you get this divergence here. Again, the economy's still growing, just about the same as in the rest of the country, but the per capita consumption of electricity in California hasn't gone up for 40 years. Pretty incredible. And yet California, as everybody knows, is doing extremely well. So we have an opportunity in the rest of the US and in countries all around the world to do very sensible, common sense type things that eliminate waste, don't interfere with economic dynamism. In fact, they improve economic dynamism, but they reduce the wasteful consumption of energy that's unnecessary because we're just throwing it away. And California has proved that case. So eventually, the nation of the United States as a whole adopted some energy efficiency standards, and boy, what a difference they have made. One of the flagship programs in this field is called the Energy Star program, and makers of appliances, washing machines, refrigerators, computers, you name it, if they achieved a very high level of energy efficiency, they were given this Energy Star logo. And so people started to look for it, and it became a big marketing tool, and in the process did a lot of good. So microwave oven here. And since 1993, more than 4.5 billion appliances that earned this Energy Star label have been purchased. This is a major success story for public policy. And as you heard just a few minutes ago, Americans have saved $200 billion on their energy bills since these efficiency standards were implemented. That is an enormous public policy success, both for the environment and for the budgets of homeowners and citizens. So energy efficiency is extremely important. I talked at the beginning of this hour about better light bulbs. And of course, a few years ago, all the talk was about these compact fluorescents, and yes, they save a lot of energy. But here's some more good news. The LEDs that are coming onto the market now are not like the LEDs that were available at a very high expense in the past. They're much better. They last longer, and you don't have to change them. They use less energy, and again, your electricity bills go down when you put these LEDs in. And it's a simple matter, and by the way, it creates a lot of jobs. And that's another important aspect of energy efficiency. You don't see robots that are capable, yet anyway, of going into buildings and replacing light bulbs. These are jobs that country by country cannot be outsourced to some other country. They put people to work right in the community, and they're typically good paying jobs. And so it's not just changing out for very efficient LEDs. It's also about some of the other options that we'll see here. Putting more insulation in. It always pays for itself. Putting better windows in that don't let the heat stream out in the winter, that don't let the cooling stream out in the summer. Again, the bills go down. And in some countries, like in Scandinavia, for example, there are now some much stronger energy efficiency standards that call for zero carbon buildings. And as a matter of fact, these programs are very popular in the countries where they've been implemented because, again, people save a huge amount of money. Look at these light bulbs. Within less than 10 years, the estimate is that 94%, almost all of the newly installed street lights are going to be LEDs. And why wouldn't they be LEDs? Because the city government and the taxpayers are going to save an enormous amount of money because of the sharp reduction in electricity bills. In some countries, you see the widespread use of solar hot water heaters. They save money almost everywhere they are used. They haven't been as popular in the United States, but in a country like Greece, you just see them on practically every structure because it's caught on. And now increasingly people are using these solar hot water heaters. Now these are different from the kinds of solar panels that produce electricity. They just heat up the water. And then it can be heated further if you want, but you've already saved a huge amount of electricity. And if you take a country like India, and there are many examples of this, where the building standards have for a long time not involved energy efficiency much at all, again, that problem becomes an enormous opportunity. The nation of India, it's estimated, could save $42 billion per year with enhanced energy efficiency. Just look at the buildings alone. The estimates are that up to 25% of all the global warming pollution being put out by the entire world is due to very inefficient buildings. Now, if you look forward at how much new building is going to take place, we'll look at an example in China. It obviously makes sense to get energy efficiency standards in place when all of these new buildings are about to be built. In India, let me go back one here. These are the states in India that are leading the way in implementing building efficiency standards. So a lot is going on. And it is not only the buildings themselves, it is also in industrial buildings, the processes inside the buildings. Things that somebody who's not an architect or an engineer like me, I'm not obviously, but it really is enlightening to hear these engineers talk about the incredible savings they can achieve by redesigning systems of pipes and pumps and electric motors. Here's a quick example. A lot of times in factories, electric motors have work to do that requires a lot of energy, but then they need less energy for some of the work they have to do. But the old style electric motors just get spun up and they're going and going at full speed. And if only a little bit of the electricity is needed, they're still pumping out a lot. So somebody came up with a variable speed motor, and it's not particularly expensive. It just requires the engineers to think through the process of how to get it done. Enormous savings. And in piping systems, instead of having all of these right angles that are unnecessary, if they just redesign them, again, an incredible amount of savings involved. So I mentioned that we're on the cusp of a new wave of municipal building. The square footage of buildings in China is going to nearly triple over the next 16 years. Unbelievable. Those of you who've been to Beijing or Shanghai have seen all the building cranes. So it's really important that China is now also beginning to enforce efficiency standards for the construction of buildings and for appliance efficiency, and to introduce incentives for people to buy and use the right technologies. Again, this is jobs intensive because people are installing the better insulation and windows. And the retrofit market is estimated to be the recipient of global investment just in commercial building retrofits in the next 10 years, less than 10 years, of almost $960 billion. This is a huge market, and it creates a lot of jobs. And a lot of it's very simple. Again, insulating the pipes and not just the walls, insulating the windows, and importantly, using architecture to redesign buildings so you take advantage of shade in the summer and sunlight in the winter and natural ventilation and natural heat. This represents yet another reason for hope.
For always doing your part. Let's all do ours. That's why we're here. History shows that when we act together, we can make real and lasting change. Tens of thousands of people have already taken the pledge to dedicate a day of action. We're asking you to join them. While you're watching right now, pledge a day of climate action, whether it's voting, marching, or speaking out in your community and giving your friends the information they need to make a world of difference. What can change in a day? With millions standing up together, what can't? Go to 24hoursofreality.org to dedicate a day to climate action. The impacts of climate change have quickly become visible and devastating. More drought, more flooding, more severe storms are taking tolls on communities and economies around the world. As they do, it's more important than ever to understand that this challenge is not too great to address. In fact, solutions exist today. Let's take a look at the good news as a reminder that we can solve the climate crisis when we all work together.
Carbon dioxide has reached levels not seen in millions of years.
Climate change is here and getting worse.
Extreme weather has wrought havoc all over the world.
It's happening here and now.
We are running out of damage by the water.
So there's been a lot of news about climate change. A lot of bad news, that is. And for the good news?
Right.
Well, there hasn't really been any. Until recently. Today we're facing the hard truth of climate change with the stubborn relentlessness of human will. And good news is happening.
Right. And now for some good news.
Every day, new solutions are emerging. And not just wouldn't it be neat if solutions, real solutions. Our ability to convert sunshine into usable energy is rapidly becoming more advanced and accessible. Which is great because every hour the sun is sending enough raw energy to Earth to meet the entire world's energy demands for a full year. And the cost for clean energy technologies is dropping. Right now, the cost of solar energy is equal to or cheaper than fossil fuel energy in about 79 countries.
I didn't even know there were 79 countries.
And the electric car market is booming thanks to falling battery prices. And guess who likes that?
Who?
All types of people from around the world are starting to embrace renewable solutions. Schools are being powered by clean energy. Financial institutions are realizing dirty energy is a bad investment, and businesses are finding that going green is good for the bottom line. Which leads us to more good news. These solutions are actually working. It turns out that what is good for the environment is also good for the economy in many ways, like reducing poverty, spurring innovation, and creating jobs. In 2013, nearly 6.5 million people were employed globally by the renewable energy industry.
Job creation. Brilliant.
Right, and while other industries are shrinking, renewables are growing as new technologies and capabilities are being rapidly discovered.
And here's some more great news.
This groundswell of support for renewable energy is forcing leaders and governments to take action. The two biggest carbon emitters, China and the US, have made moves to curb their carbon pollution and invest in cleaner energy technologies. And they're not alone. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is convening nations to forge a climate treaty that could unify the world to work together and lower our carbon emissions, transitioning us to a global clean energy society. We all know the bad news. Climate change is here. It's big, it's bad, and it's hurting us and our economies. But the important thing to know is that there is also good news. We have solutions here today, not dreams or wishes, real-world solutions that are ready to go and that are already saving money and improving lives.
Everyone's a winner.
If we rally around this good news and embrace solutions, we can forge the path to a clean energy future and make sure that progress is our new reality.
That's good news. Thank you for watching.
Because he is so passionate about this cause, Al Gore has agreed to speak with us during each hour for 24 hours of reality. But right now we have a unique opportunity to hear from this driving force in climate reality, and he's going to answer some of the questions that you guys have. Okay, first of all, I want to know what possesses a man to come on every hour for 24 hours and talk about this subject, and how do you do it?
Well, first of all, Ashlyn, thank you so much for carrying the ball for these first 6 hours.
Thank you.
Really, I'm so grateful, as I am to all of the men and women behind the scenes here who have been working so hard. And what I have done, to answer your question, is little enough compared to all the work that the Climate Reality team and control room put into this. And thank you again. But I think what you're asking is a question that is not that difficult for me to answer. I never imagined when I was a young man, a college student, and was exposed to a great scientist teaching a course that I didn't know anything about. He opened my eyes. I never imagined at that point that I would be devoting my life to trying to solve the climate crisis, or rather trying to mobilize enough people to get a set of solutions to it. When I went to Congress after 7 years after that, I asked what's going on about global warming, and I was surprised that nothing was. And I tried to convince a lot of my colleagues in the Congress that we really needed to take this on. And I found a lot of resistance, and of course it's a complicated subject and so much else going on. So I just gradually got pulled more and more into a feeling that I had to personally get involved in this. Yeah. And I sometimes tell the story, you know, there's a famous song by Sting, Message in a Bottle, but to use that scene of if you're walking along the beach and a bottle washes up with a message in it, and you don't know who it's from, but it says, please, whoever finds this, deliver this message to so-and-so. It's a matter of life and death. Well, you, anyone would feel obligated to do that. What's the source of that obligation? You don't know either person, right, but it's the right thing to do, and because the circumstances have somehow put you in a situation where you got to deliver that message, or you won't feel right about yourself if you don't, then it's a natural thing. It's not more complicated than that.
You really feel it is a personal obligation.
Yes, absolutely. And like everyone, I love my children and grandchildren, and you know, it's a matter of when you look at it long enough, when you learn about it, you think, wow, we've got to do this. And now we know we can do it. So that's why we're getting all this optimism and hope. Things really are beginning to turn the corner.
There is a lot of hope. And I want to actually get to some of the questions from some of our viewers and followers that you have. So this is from Diana Van Eyck, and she lives in Canada. And she wants to know, are you optimistic about young people and their understanding of climate reality? What are some of the most effective things citizens can do to get our countries moving in a greener direction?
Well, I'm so happy we're going to have a chance, this one and later too, to answer some of these questions coming in from Twitter. Yes, I'm very optimistic about young people in particular, and the poll numbers show this, and other studies show it. It's like a lot of things. When I was growing up, a big part of my life in the South, young people my age had a very different view of civil rights compared to a lot of older people. And I think that when young people look at the world, they're often less encumbered by some of the wrong lessons learned by previous generations. It's not always the case, but I think that young people are really motivated on this. What's the most effective thing you can do? Well, there are a lot of things. I always start with this. If you are a citizen living in a democracy, use your voice. Solving the climate crisis means winning the conversation about the climate crisis. Speak up and contact your elected officials and communicate with candidates for office. I used to be in politics, and I will tell you the secret two-part formula for convincing somebody in politics to change his or her mind.
Okay, this is good wisdom. Let me get ready for it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Two parts, a two-part message, but the secret is you gotta really mean it when you say it. You can't fake it. You gotta really mean it. Part one, Miss Candidate or Mr. Candidate, if you do the right thing on global warming, which is my priority, I will do everything I can to help you get elected or re-elected, and I'll mobilize my friends, and I'll donate money, and I'll work. Second part, if you do the wrong thing on climate, I promise you, I will do everything I possibly can to make sure you lose this election and you are not re-elected. If you mean those messages and you're prepared to back it up, and if you can convince some friends to join you in doing that, you will be amazed at how much of an impact that has.
Sometimes I feel like children and the younger generation that can't vote yet, they are so in tune to this and they are so passionate, but they're not at voting age yet. They're under 18. So I like that you made that point, that they can still mobilize their friends, their parents.
Absolutely.
They can vote with their dollar and figure out where their money goes.
Absolutely. Being an intelligent consumer and picking the right choice in the marketplace, that also helps. But even if you're not of voting age, these questions, I've been so moved by the young people on screen asking the why and why not questions. I'll tell you, going back to the civil rights movement again, just for a moment, I remember when kids my age in that day and time asked their parents and their elders, hey, why is it okay to discriminate against people based on the color of their skin? And parents usually want to tell the right thing to their kids. And when they couldn't answer those kinds of questions, that's when the laws began to change. And that can happen with climate.
I agree. Do you really think, in your heart of hearts, that each one of us can make a difference?
Absolutely. I have seen that happen. In the days when I was in elective office, I picked up lots and lots of examples in my own service and communication with my constituents and from stories told by my colleagues, how one person who was determined and who took the time to really learn the subject matter and master it, and who was persistent and passionate, one person can really make a difference. I've seen it happen time and again.
All right, this is coming from Gary Holland from Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I'm going to say this wrong because this is a little above my pay grade, I'm not going to lie. A photovoltaic, right?
Photovoltaic. Yeah.
Photovoltaic. I knew I was going to mess that one up. Photovoltaic technology has been around for decades, and I understand new materials have been developed to make photovoltaics more cost-effective. What needs to be done to encourage broader use of this technology by electric utilities and other large energy users? What countries are leading with this approach, and what factors resulted in their leadership with PV?
Great question.
Very good question.
And as we talked about in the first hours today, photovoltaic electricity, that's just the kind of solar cells that turn sunlight into an electrical current. They've gotten way more efficient, they've gotten way cheaper, and the cost reductions, not just in the new materials, it's also in the packaging, the container, the installation, the distribution, the financing models. It's really wild. Some companies will, in some states of the U.S., will put them on your roof for free. And then they'll keep ownership, your electricity bills go down, and they maintain them. So there are a lot of ways to encourage that. Now, why haven't they taken off even faster? Well, one reason is the old way of producing electricity features a central role for the coal-burning centralized utilities, and they have built up a pattern of laws and regulations with their lobbying and with the historical development of the industry, where, as one of our films, the youth fuel films showed, like in Georgia, they passed a law giving the main utility exclusive rights on this. In a lot of places, in order to put solar panels on your roof, you have to get the permission of the coal-burning utility. And in some states, the carbon polluters have convinced legislators to put a tax on people who try to put solar panels on their roof. So we need to get rid of those barriers. And here's another thing. We need to stop subsidizing coal and oil and gas. And we need to start giving more encouragement and subsidies to solar energy and wind energy. There's a little bit now, but 6 times that amount is still subsidizing and financing the polluting of the atmosphere and the creation of the climate crisis. Those subsidies for fossil fuels need to be eliminated.
I agree. I think a lot of people agree with this question. You know, our country is so political and it's so tense right now. Do you see climate reality as a political issue? And how do we get everybody on the same team?
I don't think it should be a political issue. I think it's a moral issue. I think it's an economic issue. I think it's a human survival issue. And I really don't think that it should be political. But you're right that some people have made it political. And again, some of the largest carbon polluters are actually financing candidates to try to attack anyone who wants to make the solution to the climate crisis a priority for the U.S. And this happens in a few other countries, nowhere as bad as in the U.S. But I don't think it should be a political issue. And it's become almost a kind of I started to say a tribal issue. What I mean by that is people tend to pick up sides, and you know, in a time of greater partisanship, people want to fight about things, and if your team takes one view, maybe you don't think about it too hard because you don't want to differ from the other people on your team or in your political party, but eventually that will give way. Where we are now, there are some people who just don't even want to talk about it. If you even bring it up, you know, there's a kind of a tantrum. It's almost like the classic situation of a dysfunctional family with an alcoholic father who flies into a rage if alcohol is mentioned. So the rest of the family learns to keep the peace by never talking about the elephant in the room. And in some circles, the climate crisis or global warming is kind of in that category. So people are afraid to even bring it up because some people just fly into a rage. We got to get past that. I saw that in the Civil Rights Revolution too, believe me. And once you get past it, then you win the conversation and everything changes.
I just think the environment, what can be more bipartisan than that? It's all, the environment's
And
for
it used
everyone.
to be. It used to be.
It was Nixon that
Teddy
did.
Roosevelt was
Yep.
our greatest environmental president, a Republican president.
Yep.
Richard Nixon, disgraced for other reasons, but did a terrific
Yes.
job at creating the Environmental Protection Agency and a lot of the most important environmental laws. And when I was in the House and Senate, there were Republicans who I worked with hand in hand to make progress on these issues. But some of the ultra-conservative types that, again, receive financing from carbon polluters have just stomped their feet and said, we just won't allow anybody to even talk about it. We've got to get past that the way we did in the civil rights movement.
Yeah. This is coming from another viewer. So Matthew A. Weaver from Genoa, Ohio. How do we convince the general public that green energy is feasible when big money corporations and the media portray only the benefits of coal and natural gas? So exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Let's just talk a little bit more about that. How is that feasible, that we can move this needle?
Well, this questioner from Ohio adds yet another twist to this, because he's right that almost every cable news or cable talk show, one of the three biggest sponsors is big coal, big oil, natural gas, and they're always trying to give the impression, hey, we've got your back, don't worry, this is all cool, we agree, as one of the oil companies said. But in the meantime, you know, a lot of them are financing these false think tank deniers that put false doubts out there, and they're lobbying and giving contributions to encourage legislators not to do the right thing on climate. So how do we get past that? Well, one thing we've already talked about, individuals who are willing to get involved passionately in the conversation and in the political dialogue, that makes a huge difference. But there's something else too, and we've talked about it during this whole this 24 hours program. As the cost of solar electricity and wind electricity and some of the others get cheaper than coal electricity, then no matter what the deniers or politicians say, people are going to say, whoa, wait a minute. You mean I can save money and reduce pollution at the same time? I'm in. That's a big deal, and that's beginning to happen in a big way.
I drive an electric vehicle, all electric.
Good for you.
And it was the same price as a regular car would have been. And every time I go by a gas station, I do, you know, a little mental dance for thinking, oh, that is $80 I'm saving. So it's true. What are your personal experiences with solar energy?
I have 33 solar panels on my house, photovoltaic panels. They have been extremely effective, cut my energy bills. I coupled that with redoing the windows, redoing the installation. I also used another option called geothermal energy, not the hot rock kind, but if you dig down a couple hundred feet, you can actually really cut your air conditioning in summer and your heating in winter. And along with all those other options and battery storage of the solar electricity, it's made a huge difference.
I love that. Now, I know that you have some friends that probably don't agree with climate reality.
Yeah.
How do you handle that? And how do you approach them?
Yeah, a lot of people are in that situation and want to know, and I actually pick up tips from others. I think the situation is evolving. I think we're in the midst of a big shift right now. But one thing that I do, I try to choose my words in a way that doesn't, you know, inflame the conversation unnecessarily, but don't back down and don't shy away from speaking your truth, hold your ground, and win that conversation. And you may not do it in the first try. It may take some time, but keep at it. Again, in the days of civil rights, and a lot of people will tell you the same thing about the movement for women's rights and even more recently, gay rights. You know, if I had been told 5 years ago that gay rights would be accepted now and gay marriage would be legal in most states, and I would have said, wow, I sure hope so, but I just don't believe that can happen so quickly.
Yeah.
But it did. I remember reading a story 2 years ago about two gay men waiting in line for a pizza in California, and they were holding hands, and some homophobic jerk walked by, made a nasty comment, and according to the article in the newspaper, literally every other person in that line turned on that jerk and said, "Hey, shut up, we don't accept that anymore." Wow, that's really emotional for me, because you see in that moment the hinge of history. You see a change, you see victory for what's right, for people who are made the way they are to suffer discrimination. Obviously that's wrong. And now the vast majority of people in a short period of time have come to believe, okay, yeah, clearly that's the right thing to do. Let's move on.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Progress.
Well, yeah, and climate is like that too. You know, is it really okay to use the Earth's atmosphere as an open sewer? 98 million tons a day? Really? No, but it does sometimes take time to frame it in a way that makes it very clear that we can't use the atmosphere as a sewer any more than we use our rivers as sewers anymore. We came to a realization that, hey, that's wrong. Now this is on a global basis, and that too makes it a challenge, but we're part of the same world, and we share the same sky. And when we put pollution in some place, it affects every place. So we've got to solve it every place.
I love the theme for this year, 24 Reasons of Hope. And you have been such a phenomenal figure in this. You've seen a lot of change. What are you most proud of? What change are you most proud of?
Well, I'll tell you what gives me the most feeling of pride. I've trained, by the end of next year, it'll be 10,000 climate leaders. They come for a 3-day course, and at the conclusion of it, they agree to give 10 slideshows per year, and they go out into their communities. Seeing them, feeling the passion in their hearts, setting aside 3 full days, traveling a long distance, going through this intensive training, and then undertaking this, when I see them and feel what they're doing, boy, I am so proud of them. It really gives me a great feeling.
Okay, my last question, I'll keep it quick. To those who feel there's nothing we can do about climate reality, what would you say to them?
Well, I hope they've been watching 24 Hours of Reality, because we're of course given 24 reasons why we definitely can solve it. And by the way, this evidence is real, and it's not just evidence, it's actually happening in the real world. And the fact that we can get electricity from solar panels cheaper than from coal in so many places now, and soon in almost every place, wow, that's not fake hope, that's not manufacturing optimism, that's for real. Yep. And it's happening all over the world. So yeah, we can solve it. We do need to make some changes in laws and policies, and we do need to solve it sooner rather than later, because the 98 million tons we put up there today, 20% of it will still be there thousands of years from now. And so the sooner we get on with it, the sooner we turn the corner, the easier it's going to be to go the rest of the way. But can we really solve it? You bet we can, and we will solve it.
Al, thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for sitting down and taking a whole day out of your busy schedule to do this, and your whole year of putting all of this together. We appreciate it.
You're very kind, and thank you again.
Well, as beautiful as it is right here, let's go back out to see what's happening with our green man on the street, Ian Somerhalder.
Hey everyone, it's Ian Somerhalder, your green man on the street. I am in New York City, where the United Nations is about to go into General Assembly, where this year there will be a massive focus on the issue of climate change. So I am here to take a bite out of the green apple, to generally assemble, and to talk to people about a subject that always renews me: hope. Other than Kermit the Frog, who do you know is going green?
You.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I definitely am.
Yes, that's what I know.
So when you buy something, right?
Okay.
You buy a product. Do you think about the company it's coming from, or what kind of business practices they utilize, or
I wish I thought about it
Be
more,
honest.
but I don't.
No?
No, not as much as I feel like I should.
Okay, so can I run a couple things by you?
Please do.
So think about this. Maybe there's 4 parts of a product, right? There's sourcing of the materials, raw materials, whatever. Then there's manufacturing, packaging, and distribution. If you have a company that's doing all that in a much more sustainable way, imagine the environmental impact that has. So ultimately, as a consumer, you have the ability to vote with your dollar every day, right? And now you can tell people that, right?
Right.
So imagine, that's just you and me talking. There's 308 million people in this country. Imagine every one of us doing that.
That would be awesome.
That would
That's
be,
a great
right?
idea.
And
I'm
you
going to
can tell
start
people
doing
this
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Knuckles. Question, so where are you guys from?
From Leeds in England.
Both
Yeah,
of
both
you?
from there, yeah.
Very cool. So living in the UK, how important is the environmental effort for you?
It's very important.
Because it's changing.
Yeah. Anything we can do to make the environment better for future generations is a good thing. It's a positive thing.
And in practice, what do you mean specifically?
In practice, like we said, using public transport, reusing what you can instead of throwing things away, recycling.
You guys have a pretty good recycle program there, right?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Your compost and all that stuff that you
Yeah,
do, it's
yeah.
all separate?
Yeah, everything's separate, yeah.
I wish America did that. What about you?
Yeah, definitely we try to do as much as we can, and I do think it's important that people are aware of these issues, because I don't think people always are aware of what's going on, so they're making decisions just naively, really.
Right.
And if they're more aware of what's happening, then they'll probably make a different decision.
By the way, let's just be honest, there's nothing wrong with people not truly understanding right now what's going on.
Yeah.
We live in this world where, I mean, you guys live in the UK, you know, everything is so expensive. We want so many things. All we do is work to buy a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So basically, as a consumer, you can vote with your dollar every day.
Yeah.
You can choose to buy the products from a company that sourced their stuff from a sustainable way, manufactured in a sustainable way, packaged it in a sustainable way, and then distributed it in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
We have that ability to do that. And thank you.
Okay.
Cannot thank you enough for your time and energy and effort. Thank you. Truly. It was just a kiss on the hand.
Oh, that's all right.
Sorry, man. What about other young people? What can you do to get other young people on board?
Well, since we're older, we have a really big influence, so just like talking to them about it and putting it in our school programs and stuff, just to make sure that they're aware of what's coming, because it will come at a certain point.
But let me ask you a question. Do you think that there's 2 parts of awareness? Isn't the other part of awareness active, like, in action? Taking
Like
action?
showing them what we can do, like recycling if they throw it on the ground, make sure like the green bin, because it could like the effects of what could happen.
Energy use, cars.
Yeah, making sure we close the lights.
Panels. You understand that as a consumer, with your dollar, whether it's Canadian or American, you have a choice and you make a vote every single time you spend $1 with a company. Can you show that and tell your buddies that?
Yeah.
So that they know, like, wait, hold on. I'm cool as a cucumber, man. I have a lot of power.
Of course.
Yeah, you're awesome, man. Give me a high five. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Every movement has its moment. This is ours. So I'm dedicating a day to do my part. I'm dedicating a day to make a difference. It's time to stand up and stop climate change and turn the solutions that we have into the clean energy future that we want. So come join me. Go to 24hoursofreality.org and help me spread the word by hashtagging the word climate hope.
Given the importance of acting on climate change and the exciting solutions available to us today, it would seem only logical that leaders everywhere would be fully on board. Of course, as we are learning today, we are seeing progress, but we're not all the way there yet. In an attempt to understand the roadblocks that remain, the Climate Reality Project is working with millennial documentary filmmaker Vanessa Black to examine some of the key climate deniers influencing United States legislators and public opinion. In this installment of Youth Fuel, she travels to Washington, D.C. to take a look at ALEC. If you haven't heard of the American Legislative Exchange Council yet, you're not alone, and you'll want to keep watching. ALEC is made up of some 2,000 conservative legislatures, and each year about 1,000 bills are crafted, at least in part on ALEC's model legislation are introduced into the states. The problem, as you'll see, is that many of the corporations that fund ALEC are precisely those in the fossil fuel industry. Companies that would like nothing more than to block legislation that would address the reduction of carbon pollution. Take a look.
Have you ever heard of the American Legislative Exchange Council?
No.
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 Have you ever heard of American Legislative Exchange Council?
Uh-huh.
Oh, what do you know about them?
They sponsor a lot of relatively right-wing legislation.
ALEC. With how much influence it has on American legislation, you'd think it'd be a household name. Yet most people have never heard of them. Why is it important that we know who ALEC is and how do they affect us and the environment?
ALEC exists to help corporations get their legislation introduced in the States. So ALEC is really big polluters' best friend. Exxon, Shell, BP, these companies and others like them do propose model legislation at ALEC.
In this episode of Youth Fuel, we head to Virginia and Washington, D.C. to find out who ALEC is, what corporations they're working with, and how they're helping those corporations write our laws. I'm Vanessa Black. I'm a filmmaker and an activist, and I'm traveling around America to find out more about our biggest polluters and climate change deniers. We're in DC looking into ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, trying to see what is happening in our government to prevent us from laws that are going to give us a renewable future.
The American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, has been a really driving force in undermining policies that would seek to address climate action. And they've done this at multiple levels, at that state level, at the national, and even international levels.
What they do is they bring legislators and corporate lobbyists behind closed doors to write our laws.
According to ALEC's website, each year, close to 1,000 bills, based at least in part on ALEC model legislation, are introduced in the states. Of these, an average of 20% become law. 98% of ALEC's funding comes from corporations, corporate trade, and corporate foundations. And more than 25% of all state legislators are ALEC members.
So you have these big organizations that are extremely polluting, that really use ALEC, fund ALEC substantially in order to try and push their agenda at the state level.
They are increasingly funded by fossil fuel, coal, oil, the Koch brothers. It's becoming more and more part of who they are versus pushing other legislation.
After learning about ALEC, I wanted to talk to them in person about how they create legislation behind closed doors.
Thank you for calling the American Legislative Exchange Council.
I wanted to see if there was someone at your organization who'd be willing to make some comments. My request for an interview was never acknowledged, but here's what I do know. ALEC is made up of 2,000 conservative legislators, over 100 of which are in leadership positions, and over 300 private sector representatives.
States are constantly passing resolutions demanding that the federal government block the Environmental Protection Agency's ability to do just about anything.
We've been tracking ALEC's actions and pushing back against misinformation that they've spread. For example, one of them is they talk about there being many causes of climate change, and we can't put the current changes on, and I think it agrees that it's happening, but we can't attribute it to CO2 emissions. There is zero uncertainty that this is caused by human activities and release of greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide. They're not acknowledging the science of climate change, and as a result, they're able to push their own agenda.
Now that we understand what ALEC does and what they stand for, how does this play in the real world? Let's look at Ohio, where John Kasich became the first governor to freeze legislation for renewable energy.
When Governor Kasich became a legislator, he joined ALEC. The bill that he froze was Renewable Energy for Ohio and Energy Efficiency Act. It basically freezes the current standards in place and then puts into existence a 2-year study period.
The reality is he killed an industry at least for 2 years, and a lot of it won't come back.
In 2012, Kasich was instrumental in rolling back legislation to push fracking for gas in national parks. Governor Kasich is backed by the Koch brothers, the billionaires behind Koch Industries, a multinational group of companies active in trading petroleum, chemicals, energy, gas liquids, and a myriad of other products we use every day.
Governor Kasich has been intertwined with the fossil fuel industry in Ohio.
Now it is becoming less politically viable for companies to be supporting ALEC. In the past few years, we've seen 80 companies publicly leave ALEC and withdraw their support.
It looks as though a lot of the companies that are staying are oil and coal and some of the bigger polluters.
Right, a lot of fossil fuel interests have continued to support them, and that is problematic in that there is a lot of power and money, of course, behind them, and it does, so ALEC continues to be a powerful force that needs to be kept in check.
On your website for Progress Ohio, you have banners that say Stand Up to ALEC. What are those for?
You go to standuptoalec.org, what you're going to see are opportunities to try to talk some of these corporations that give money and sit there with ALEC at their boards and get them to quit.
Why don't you think more people know about this?
I think people are cynical, and rightly so. The more you talk about it, the more people begin to understand it, but I think they feel powerless. You don't see the immediate return of writing an email. You might think you're just one voice, but you can make a difference. Just a couple weeks ago, Microsoft dropped out of ALEC.
We cannot be discouraged. We can reclaim our democracy and step up to the challenge of fighting these giants on the local playing field. We can stand up to these companies online, but offline, our dollars count as votes too. The more we know about these companies, the more empowered we are as individuals, and the more motivated we are as a society to move to a healthier planet. Join the growing movement to solve the climate crisis and fuel a cleaner future.
There's so much more to come during 24 Hours of Reality, including a one-on-one with former Vice President and Climate Reality Project founder Al Gore, conversations with the World Bank's Dr. Jim Kim, Bradley Whitford, Reed Hunt, counselor to the President John Podesta, and Lieutenant General Russell Honore. More from our man on the street, Ian Somerhalder, more field reports you need to see, and music from Colby Calais. You can see all the highlights from 24 Hours of Reality starting later tonight at 24hoursofreality.org. Climate change is real. It's happening right now, before our very eyes. We all have a lot to lose and a lot to gain if we act soon. As the United Nations prepares to convene a special meeting of the world's leaders to collaborate on negotiating a new agreement that can ensure a clean energy future, the Climate Reality Project launched a campaign to hear from the world's children in their own words. After all, they're the ones with the most to lose and the most to gain. So it's only natural that they would have a few key questions for their leaders. And as you might imagine, these young people have a way of cutting right to the heart of the issue. Why not hear what they have to say? Plus, after this compilation of some of the best submissions from around the world, we'll see a single video that came in from a future climate leader from the Philippines.
My name's Amy Farrah and I live in England.
Hi, I'm Aiden and I'm from Hong Kong.
Hi, my name's Molly and I live in Malaysia.
Hi, I am Mika from South Africa.
I live in Croatia.
I live in Auckland, New Zealand.
And I'm from Brazil.
Brazil.
From South Africa.
From France.
From the United States.
United States.
From Mongolia.
From Malaysia.
From Dubai.
From Romania.
From Mexico City.
From the Philippines. From India.
From India.
Western Australia.
So my question for all world leaders is this.
And my question to the government bodies is...
My question to the UN is...
And I guess the first thing I want to say...
The first question I want to ask.
My question is... My question.
My question.
My question.
My question.
I'd like to question...
I would like to ask.
I'm asking members of the UN.
Why do you sit here and pretend?
Why are we letting companies freely pollute the atmosphere?
Why are you allowing the palm oil industry to destroy Malaysian rainforest?
Why do global economic policies consistently stimulate and encourage reliance on burning fossil fuels?
Why is there no more emphasis on developing a generation who can take responsibility for the causes of climate change?
Why, in South Africa, a country overflowing with sunlight, don't we use solar panels?
Why not countries with similar consumption formulate region-specific laws and targets for the next decade?
Why not to put pressure on these companies to change their methods?
Why don't governments start creating sustainable modes of transport?
Para preservar o bem mais precioso que existe no planeta.
Why not change our focus, leave animosity and hatred and competition behind?
Why not incentivize people to use energy more efficiently?
Why not invest more resources in communities?
Why not strive to reduce carbon emissions?
Everyone has a stake in what happens to our planet.
The global problem requires a global solution.
It's time to act.
So what are you waiting for?
Hi, I'm Jack and I'm from the Philippines.
Today, the leading cause of global warming is the energy industry's gaseous emission from burning of fossil fuel. My country has available options for cleaner, renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, and biomass fuel. According to the latest Philippine power statistics, approximately 28% of the energy that we generate come from these renewable energy sources. However, there still is a projected energy shortage for the years to come. Thus, our government decided that we will be importing energy alongside our heavy dependence on the local burning of fossil fuels. We already know the leading cause of the problem. Now, I would like to ask you leaders, why not focus and target on the increase of the efficiency and productivity of these renewable energy sources? We should promote researches that aim at developing cleaner energy technologies at lower costs.
And that brings hour 7 to a close. I will never forget the past 7 hours, and I hope that they will stick with you too. Thank you for allowing me the honor of being your first host for this year's 24 Hours of Reality. I have to admit, I'm a little sad to leave you, but thankfully, I'm definitely leaving you in able hands. When 24 Hours of Reality continues, your host will be Ryan Devlin. He's an actor, a producer, host of MTV's Are You the One, and he appears on the new CW series Jane the Virgin. But here's why I'm a Ryan Devlin fan. Ryan is the co-founder of This Bar Saves Lives, a give-back company that sells gourmet granola bars, and for each bar donates a packet of life-saving food to a child in need. He's also a passionate environmentalist who works tirelessly. See, this is what happens after 7 hours. He works tirelessly to educate and inspire youth to take action against climate change. I am so proud to pass the green baton to Ryan. I wish him and all of you a very inspiring 24 hours. Don't forget to do your part. You can make a world of difference. Go to the 24hoursofreality.org to dedicate a day of climate action.